Greetings, my dear friends. This is your own Professor DC, and I'm going to explain Ozymandias in this video. Let's start with the background of Percy Bysshe Shelley and Ozymandias. Percy Bysshe Shelley, an iconic romantic poet, was known for his progressive views and radical ideas. Born in 1792, Shelley belonged to a generation of poets that emphasized emotion, nature, and the individual's power in the face of societal constraints. He was critical of tyranny and monarchy, both of which appear thematically in many of his works. Ozymandias was written in 1818 during a period when Western world was captivated by the rediscovery of ancient Egyptian relics, particularly the colossal statue of Egyptian pharaoh that were slowly being unearthed. Shelley composed Ozymandias after a conversation with his friend and a fellow poet, Horace Smith, who also wrote a sonnet with the same subject. Shelley's Ozymandias center on the inevitability of decay and fleeting nature of power, capturing a timeless message about human ambition and the certainty of eventual ruin. Let's talk about the structure of Ozymandias. Ozymandias is a sonnet, a 14-line poem traditionally written in iambic pentameter. Shelley's sonnet, however, deviates slightly from the typical Shakespearean or Petrarchan sonnet forms, blending both structures with a unique rhyme scheme. The rhyme scheme here is ABABA, CDC, EDE, FEF. Once again, ABABA, CDC, EDEF, EF. This unconventional structures hints at the theme of decay and transformation present in the poem itself. Let's now move on to line-by-line explanation. Line number 1. I met a traveler from an antique land. Here, the speaker introduces the story through the account of a traveler, someone who journeys to distant places, who come from an antique land, which means a place of ancient civilization, likely Egypt. Shelley uses this introduction to create a sense of mystery and set up the narrative. Line number 2. Who said two vast trunkless legs of stone? The traveler describes a statue with vast and trunkless legs, large legs without a torso, standing alone in the desert. This image hints at something once grand, now reduced to fragments, suggesting a powerful figure whose body has deteriorated over time. Line number 3. Stand in the desert, near them on the sand. The ellipses pause here, enhancing the eerie stillness of the scene. The desert, an empty, barren place, surrounds the ruins, emphasizing isolation. Line number 4. Half sunk, a shattered visage lies whose frown. The traveler sees the shattered visage, or we can say broken face of the statue, lying half buried in the sand. The face has a frown, which means angry or disapproving expression, suggesting the character of the person it represents. Line number 5. And wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command. Here, Shelley adds more detail to the expression with the wrinkled lip, signifying disdain or arrogance, and a sneer of cold command, an expression of authority and control. This face tells us that the ruler it represents was authoritarian and scornful. Line number 6. Tell that its sculptor well those passions read. The sculptor could capture the ruler's personality and passions, or we can say strong emotions or desires. Despite the statue's broken state, the passions are so vivid that they seem almost alive, testifying to the artist's skill. Line number 7. Which yet survive, stampede on these lifeless things. These passions survive, or we can say remain, impressed upon the lifeless things, or we can say the statue. Although the statue itself is lifeless object, the emotions and arrogance of the king have endured through time. Line number 8. The hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. This line implies that sculptors hand mocked, which means work imitated or possibly even criticized, these passions and the heart that once fed them, which means heart, perhaps of the ruler, sustained or gave rise to them. Shelley hints at both the artist's insight and perhaps a subtle critique of the ruler's arrogance. Now, let's summarize line number 1 to 8. These lines set up the scene with a broken statue in a vast desert depicting a powerful ruler whose image remains partially intact. The skill of the sculptor has preserved the ruler's arrogance and authority even after his physical kingdom has crumbled. This suggests both the power of art to capture reality and the hubris of the ruler who believed their legacy would last forever. Moving on to line number 9. And on the pedestal these words appear, which means on the statue's pedestal, which is nothing but the base or platform on which it stands, an inscription remains boasting of the ruler's former greatness. Line number 10. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. The inscription identifies the ruler as Ozymandias, a grand title meaning he was the King of Kings, a title claiming supreme power. Line number 11. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. The inscription continues, proclaiming that the ruler's achievements are so immense that even the mighty or powerful or other rulers should despair, or we can say lose hope by comparison. It's a proud, almost taunting statement filled with arrogance and confidence in his lasting legacy. Line number 12. Nothing beside remains round the decay. Despite this boastful claim, the traveler tells us that nothing beside remains, which means nothing else is left. All of the Ozymandias' works, or we can say achievements or creations, have disappeared, leaving only ruins. Line number 13. Of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare. The colossal wreck, it means nothing but a massive ruined statue is now surrounded by boundless and bare, which is vast and empty desert, highlighting its isolation. Line number 14. The lone and level sands stretch far away. Finally, the poem ends with the image of the desert's lone and level sands, which means the endless flat sands stretching far into the distance. The emptiness emphasizes how Ozymandias' empire has vanished, leaving only barren landscape as a reminder of his insignificance in the face of time. Now, let us summarize line number 9 to 14. The second half of the poem reveals Ozymandias' hubris through his proud inscription, which now serves as an ironic statement. His empire and supposed greatness have completely vanished, swallowed by the sands. The ruined statue stands as a testament to the fleeting nature of human power and ambition. Let's now talk about the overall summary of the poem. Ozymandias serves as a meditation on the impermanence of power. Shelley illustrates how even the most mighty rulers who once boasted of their greatness will eventually be forgotten. Ozymandias' colossal statue, meant to immortalize him, is now mere ruin in the endless desert. The poem reflects romantic themes, critiquing human pride and the vanity of trying to leave a lasting legacy through material monuments. It underscores that time eventually erases all traces of power and ambition, reminding us of the ephemeral nature of human achievements. My dear friends, now that you've understood the poem, I have some questions for you to ponder. Question number one for you is: how does Shelley's description of Ozymandias' statue serve as a critique of authority and pride? Question number two is: why do you think Shelley chose a distant narrator, the traveler, to recount the tale of Ozymandias rather than describing it firsthand? Question number three: how does Ozymandias reflect the value of a romantic period, especially concerning nature and humanity? Question number four: what is the significance of the poem's setting in a desolated desert? How does this choice of setting enhance its themes? And last question for you, my dear friends, is: how might Ozymandias apply to today's world, particularly in terms of ambition, power, and legacy? And that concludes our deep dive into Percy Bysshe Shelley's Ozymandias. This powerful poem reminds us that even the greatest empires and rulers, no matter how mighty, are ultimately humbled by time. Shelley's words challenge us to reflect on the impermanence of our own ambitions and the lasting impact we truly leave behind. If you enjoyed this explanation, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more insightful analysis of classic literature. Stay tuned for our next session, where we will continue exploring timeless works in a way that brings them alive. Remember, literature has the power not just to entertain, but to make us see life through a new lens. Thank you for watching, and see you next time on Professor DC.